desert in the great American Southwest. I'm Art Bell.
Slamming into your radio like a supercharged nanoparticle of unobtainium. My name is George Knapp.
I'm Richard Serrett.
This is Connie Willis.
I'm George Norrie. Welcome to Coast AM.
It's great to be here.
Welcome to Coast to Coast PM, the #1 unofficial Coast to Coast AM podcast. We are two brothers who analyze the world's largest overnight paranormal radio show known as Coast to Coast AM. My name is Paul. I'm the one that listens to this inexplicable radio show here with my brother.
Hey, it's Chris, and Paul, I sure am excited for another episode of Coast to Coast PM.
I am as well, Chris. We are going to be listening to a George Knapp episode from February 25th, 2024. We haven't listened to Mr. Knapp in a while.
Yeah, dude. I'm very excited to hear Mr. Knapp speaking. Who's he talking to?
He is talking to a man named Rob Heatherly, who is a former U.S. Marine who runs the Military Witness to UAP YouTube channel and has also been doing some digging into Wikipedia and reporting, I think, on his YouTube channel and X, formerly known as Twitter, about the Guerilla Skeptics of Wikipedia.
Love this, dude. This is going to be awesome, isn't it?
It is. They're also known as the Wikipedia Cabal, Chris, because they control what goes on Wikipedia and what does not.
I love Wikipedia Cabal, dude. And yeah, I definitely believe that, because isn't it something like 0.01% of the editors edit like 75% of Wikipedia? It's something crazy. It's something crazy like that.
Yeah, it's basically a small group of people who are actively editing anything that is deemed to be pseudoscientific and or conspiratorial and or generally in disagreement, and they get to decide what should be on Wikipedia and what should not be. And this is an actual group of people who have banded together. And they have little functions, they have trainings to help you learn how to do this. And they're very proud of their work as well, silencing ufologists everywhere, Chris. So we're going after them today.
It's kind of like Ghislaine Maxwell was supposedly a power user on Reddit.
Really?
Yeah.
So Reddit is for pedophiles is what you're telling me.
And funnily enough, the day her username is like Maxwell or something like that. And the day she goes to jail is the day that post stops, or that user account stops posting.
Well, it was probably her. Well, Chris, before we get into any of that, though, we got to go check in with our good friend Tim Banal at the Coast to Coast AM blog.
Tim time.
Today's article: Zimbabwean family claims to be plagued by unrelenting poltergeist activity.
And they're gonna go to a witch doctor.
Let's find out.
Okay.
A family in Zimbabwe says that they are being tormented by a malevolent, unseen presence that has wreaked havoc upon their lives. The strange case, which has been attributed to invisible, mischievous creatures by a local media outlet, began around 4 months ago in the city of Bulawayo.
Jeez, Louise.
I butchered that. I should really
awful.
practice these names before I start.
Once or twice. Just give it a shot before you actually record.
Whenever I read things in my head and I don't know the word, I literally just gloss over it. I don't even attempt in my head to pronounce these things.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think we all do that, but You're not just reading this in your head.
Yeah, I after 80 episodes, I should think this through more. According to an unnamed member of the family, the harrowing hauntings started when their 3 children inexplicably had their heads shaved in the middle of the night. And the following evening, one of the youngsters was stabbed in the leg with a knife while he slept.
So I would have been pretty terrified by the head shaving. Also, that they didn't wake up during it. What is going on with these kids' sleeping habits?
Yeah, how do you sleep through your head being shaved? I don't actually understand that one.
I am unsure. You would think you would at least feel an occasional yank that would wake you up.
Yeah.
But then getting stabbed in the leg, this is wild, dude. This is like ganja weed stuff up in South Sudan.
Yeah, because when they say shaved in the middle of the night, are we talking buzzed or are we talking like razor blade?
It's a good point. For some reason, I'm thinking they almost certainly meant like getting buzzed because you can't take a knife to somebody's skull and they not feel it. And all three of the kids got shaved.
Yeah, all three of them. But then also those clippers are loud.
They're
I don't
loud.
know.
They're loud.
I should be much more fixated on the fact that a kid got stabbed, but for some reason, I'm stuck on the shaved head thing. It's fine. We'll move on.
Okay. All right. So these people are being like terrorized by like a local gang or something.
Yeah, this is some actually malicious activity. This isn't I woke up and I felt a tug at the foot of my bed. This is I got stabbed in the night by a ghost.
Yeah.
All right. We were all terrified and completely clueless about what was happening, he recalled, lamenting that they have subsequently been plagued by constant paranormal activity in their home. Among the many unsettling events that are said to occur with regularity in the residence are lights flickering on and off, doors and windows opening and closing, inexplicable sounds, and the disappearance of kitchen items during the preparation of meals.
Sounds like these people need to get an alarm system in Zimbabwe, or at least a dog.
A dog would probably be good.
I bet that would solve about 99% of these problems.
It's quite possible. You know what I recently started watching was Ghosts UK. Very delightful show. I highly recommend it. But the lights flickering reminds me of that.
Nah.
You should watch it. It's good.
Keep going.
It's funny. It's British humor. It's dry.
Ugh.
We sought help from different prophets and churches. First off, awesome that they're getting prophets. I don't know where you find those, but 10 out of 10, the family member said. But the situation only worsened after each attempt.
Is that something... Are you self-described as a prophet, or do you have to have other people call you a prophet first, and then you can start saying this person is a prophet?
I think it's a personal label that then other people begin to believe.
Right.
But I think it has to start with you saying, I am a prophet. And people are like, wow, maybe he is a prophet. Or she.
I don't go around saying I'm a prophet.
Well, it would be a lot cooler if you did, Chris.
And maybe I need to... I'm a prophet, everybody. I'm a prophet.
To that end, he noted that even they enlisted a spiritual healer for a cleansing ceremony, but this seemingly sparked a mysterious fire that only impacted the bedrooms of the home. This is violent.
Yeah, dude. This is one of these kids got into some major trouble and is refusing to tell their parents the seriousness of it. I'm guessing probably because it's drug related or maybe gambling related, something along those lines. But like, they're being terrorized by people. This is terrorism.
My other thought is that one of the children is a little disturbed and is causing all these problems.
It's an interesting idea. It's the call is coming from inside the house.
Exactly. Yeah. It reminds me of the Bell Witch from Middle Tennessee, if you're familiar.
God, dude. And it also reminds you of The Matrix and other Keanu Reeves movies.
Okay, first off, I never talk about The Matrix.
But yeah, that was our other woman.
That was the other woman. But in the Bell Witch story, Betsy Bell was probably inflicting these wounds on herself.
You're right.
All right. Anyways, hoping to protect their children from paranormal activity, the family went so far as to send them to live with their grandmother.
You think the kid stabbed himself?
I think it's possible the kid stabbed himself. However, suggesting that the strange case could be that of a poltergeist, the same eerie events began occurring at their new residence shortly after their arrival. Now, back in Zimbabwe, the youngsters continued to be connected to the curious phenomena as a stay at a neighbor's house saw similarly unnerving activity unfold at that location. A witness to the weirdness, Rurami Dulwayo, observed that the children were sleeping in my living room when a teapot and cups from the display cabinet were mysteriously removed and used to hit the children throughout the night.
This is some crazy stuff, dude, for sure.
It's just following them around everywhere.
Yeah. A lot of crazy activity going on, it seems like, in Zimbabwe.
In light of what she has seen, the neighbor offered a rather ominous assessment of the situation, musing that, I am convinced these unforeseen forces have one goal: to kill the children. As one might imagine, the family fosters similar concerns, which is why they have turned to the media in Zimbabwe in the hopes of finding some solution to the paranormal activity that has been a nightmarish fixture into their lives for months.
Well, the best to that Zimbabwean family.
I hope they find a good prophet to help them fix their woes for sure.
I think they need to go with a medicine person.
Do you think that'll get the
Personally.
job done?
Yeah, they need to find themselves a good priest.
Well, we can only hope. Well, Chris, for some quick housekeeping, you can support the show at patreon.com/coast to coast PM for as little as $2 a month. Keep our mics running, keep the lights on at the Coast to Coast PM studios. You can email me at c2cpmpod@gmail.com. That will be in the show notes. If you have any show requests, you can find Chris on Reddit or Coast to Coast PM. And with that, let's jump into the show. February 25th, 2024's Coast to Coast AM with Rob Heatherly and a brief little sojourn by a woman named Allie Duncan as well. So, Chris, to start off, George Knapp has an intro because he does not like these debunkers. So he wants to share just a little bit about what we're talking about tonight.
Because we're going to take a deep dive into some of the tactics and strategies of information warfare, the battle for control of the narrative when it comes to UFOs and other subjects that we discuss here often. The debunkers think it's all nonsense, of course, and they hate that anyone takes it seriously, but instead of devoting their time to their own work or their families or personal lives, they spend an inordinate amount of time and energy bashing people who are interested in things that they don't like or don't agree with. So they twist and contort and distort and censor and often insult, demean, scoff. And a lot of times their tactics involve petty little stuff that make you wonder what went wrong in their lives to arrive at this point. The particular battleground we will discuss tonight is Wikipedia.
I mean, Knapp's been dealing with those people his whole entire life, I'm sure. I mean, especially his later life, for the last, 30 years since he was with Bob Lazar and stuff. I mean, everything since then. And he's been head first in a lot of the UFO, UAP stuff and going to Congress and testifying. I mean, he's had to deal with a lot of crap over the decades. Now, is some of it a little bit self-inflicted? Yeah, but the wounds, I'm sure, are no less raw because of that.
Yeah, you can tell listening to this that this is very personal for George Knapp because he has had to deal with it for so long. And I think realizing that there is actually a coordinated group of individuals who are editing Wikipedia pages very much frustrates him. I do love his own ad hominem attacks, though, of like, what's wrong with these people? Don't you have lives, you losers? I find that narrative from him very fun.
Well, it's your basic, he's the artist to the critic, right? And all these debunkers and skeptics are more critics a lot of the times than really, I think, engaging with the narrative, whatever it is, because they're crackpot UFO people. But I would say, as far as crackpot UFO people, George Knapp is one of the best in breed.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the only ones that's been on this beat since like the 80s, you know. And he's a legitimate journalist as well. He does like investigating reporting in the Los Angeles area.
That's what I'm
Las
saying.
Vegas area.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's not just like some crazy person. He does real work, and one of those things that he does is ufology,
Right.
Well,
and I also, I think we would be remiss not to say, if we don't think there are people controlling Wikipedia, I think you're an idiot. Like, that's legitimate. Like, if you don't think one of the largest websites in the world, in which hundreds of millions, if not actual billions of people have visited this website to look up information about history, information about politics, information about science, information about individuals. You don't think that's being tightly controlled? It's a press release machine for every single possible event and or you know, relatively famous person or thing on the planet. That's not being controlled. I think you would be insane if you didn't think it was being controlled somehow.
Well, and also YouTube has begun using it on, sensitive topics where they
Right.
actually post the Wikipedia pages underneath the video. Google has Wikipedia usually as the first thing that comes up if you ask a question about an event or a person. So it's actively being used by other large tech companies
Right.
to, I guess, go along with their like anti-misinformation, disinformation campaigns.
Right.
So why wouldn't they have their own anti-misinformation, disinformation
Of course
campaign
they do.
within Wikipedia?
And
Uh,
if you have a committee of anti disinformation, like that is a propaganda mill. That's legitimately what it is.
well, let's hear a little bit about it because Rob Heatherly has been researching this quite a bit.
Of a guy named Rob Heatherly, who's been posting a lot of content on X, formerly Twitter. He's been doing his own digging into some of the tactics and targets of the guerrilla skeptics, has exposed some fairly egregious examples of what sure looks like abuse of the Wikipedia system, always aimed at people like Lou Elizondo or Colonel John Alexander, men who took up arms to protect our country, Admiral Tim Gallaudet, scientists like Dr. Gary Nolan of Stanford or Jacques Vallée, or Hal Puthoff, Avi Loeb, and so many others, as well as a broader spectrum of topics, not just paranormal weird stuff, but also medical, social subjects.
I think this is where things start getting a little funny, right? Because one of the things I was thinking of while Knapp was talking was the funny part is that the powers that be also fund a lot of the conspiracy theory. There were plenty of freaking, Fed plants and Q and the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys and the whatever freedom fighters, whatever the hell they were calling themselves, Patriot Prayer or whatever the hell.
Patriot Front.
Like half of them were feds. 3/4 of them were feds. And they're putting out like propaganda fed material. But in a lot of cases, those are people who want to be doing that. That's what they want to be doing. And I think the same thing is happening with Wikipedia. There are professional skeptics that get their rocks off being like, well, this is obviously and clearly a fake because of all these reasons. And like, they want to be doing this. They wouldn't be editing Wikipedia if that wasn't the case, right? Like a lot of the times this stuff is self-selecting. It's like, well, the person on MSNBC or CNN or Fox News is lying to me. And it's like, I don't know if they are necessarily lying to you because they wouldn't be in that position if they had to lie all the time or they just don't care, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably spot on in that. I don't think they think they're lying. I think that they think, I mean, well, I don't know. Some of the Fox News emails that came out, they know that they're full of shit a lot of the time. But I think generally they think that they're still doing the correct thing.
Right.
Most people
Good
don't
work.
wake up in the
Yeah.
morning and say, I want to be as evil and insidious as possible. Like,
Right.
that's relatively rare. With these skeptics, I think it's a similar thing of they think they're serving the greater good by limiting or spinning the information that's on Wikipedia because they don't want people believing it because they do think it's bullshit.
Right.
They think that UFOs are fake, that it's all
Right.
made up, and that
Yeah.
their service to the community is to make it as obvious as possible on Wikipedia.
Right. Exactly.
Which goes into our next clip, Chris, that the whole thing is controlled.
And one of those fights is unfolding on Wikipedia, where a group of more than 100 people who call themselves skeptics, but are more accurately debunkers, have banded together to take control of thousands of individual pages read by tens of millions of people who turn to Wikipedia thinking it is a reliable source of information when most clearly it is not. My first guest has found evidence to show that much of what appears on Wikipedia is not to be trusted. It is slanted, censored, and distorted.
We were all told this, those of us who went to college or had decent teachers in high school and junior high. You can't use Wikipedia as a source. You can use Wikipedia to guide you to better sources, But I wouldn't even fully trust the sources on Wikipedia. I always took them as, well, this is a first start on whatever I was researching. Oftentimes it was world events or historical events. And so it was good to see who were some of the main characters. But it was a way to get a quick initial understanding of something. It cannot be the only thing you use to understand an event or a person or a movie or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, and I think the problem comes into play when people's time is limited, and it
Right.
honestly is already asking a lot for someone to read a Wikipedia article.
Right.
And I think you're definitely correct. Like, it's a great starter point, even for topics like ufology. I've used it to kind of like guide me in certain directions or get like a first layer of what are we even talking about, and then finding sources and like routing from there. And then I know better things to research, but it's difficult when no one has any time. And if things are in the news and people try and look it up quickly, they're going to probably land on Wikipedia, you know?
It's almost always the first, second, or third pop up. And like I type in whatever it is, wiki. Like that's my Google search, right? And I probably need to stop using Google. But guess what? 98% of us can't stop using Google. And it's always one of those things for me. It's like, well, what's the problem? Right? Are we the problem? Are we the consumer the problem? Or is the problem a more systemic disease? Like, should I stop using Amazon? Probably, but I'm not going to. Should I stop using Google? Yes, I probably should stop using Google. I should probably go to one of the smaller search engines, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to stop using Gmail. I'm not going to stop using, you know, iPhones and Apple and Verizon and all these things, right? Like these are all things that are bad. We know that. We know these things are terrible, that these companies don't treat their workers right. But we're stuck in this, like, I don't know, doom loop of everything's kind of crap and we're all treating each other like crap because it's easy.
Well, we don't have time for anything else. Like, I think about this a
Right.
lot with how people used to, I don't know, make food and like bake bread and all that kind of like old timey crap. They had time to do that. No one has time for that anymore. Like when you think about how unhealthy most of the food we eat is, it's because it's fast and we all have to bust our asses at work and then we're exhausted. And then we do whatever is easiest and convenient, be it order something on Amazon because we don't have time to run to the store, to, you know, grabbing or delivering some shitty food to your door because you don't have time or energy to cook. Like we're just all ground down in late stage capitalism and don't have the energy or the wherewithal to do anything else. And I think a lot of people also just don't have the skill sets anymore to do anything else. Like it's all we
Right.
know.
And here's the thing, right? But and this goes to like the layers, right? Into which like we are totally alienated from everything because it's like, why is the food so unhealthy? Well, it's because there's a lot of high fructose corn syrup in it. And it's like, well, why is there a lot of high fructose corn syrup? And it's because, well, the corn lobbies get subsidized. And it's like, well, why do the corn lobbies get subsidized? And it was like, well, back in like the 30s, we had corn shortages and we needed to start subsidies, and then they got entrenched. And then we started mass producing all this corn. It was like, what the heck are we going to do with all this stuff? And it was like, well, actually, there's a lot of sugar in corn and we can bubble it down through chemical processes that we learned during World War II because of all the development that was getting thrown into, you know what I mean? It's like all these, there's all these links that like almost imprison all of us. We are in the panopticon, which is the like, I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but it's the type of prison where it's a circle and then in the middle is a guard tower so that the guards can see every single prisoner in their prison cells. But the thing is that we are the prisoners and the prison guards.
This is such a happy topic. Well, let's keep moving, Chris. Let's find out about how our boys started tracking this down, though. We'll reel it back into Wikipedia.
You first spotted something and sort of got onto the idea that this goes way beyond skepticism with the David Grush case. David Grush, the whistleblower who blew things wide open, testified under oath before Congress last summer in front of cameras and then behind closed doors many other times. He's been working with the Inspector General. What happened to Dave Grush that caught your attention and got you onto this?
Well, I've been in the UFO arena pretty heavily for about 3 years now, gotten to know a lot of high-level people and basically the whole community. So I kind of recognized their talking points. And after David Grush went public in June 5th, 2023, I noticed some new people in the UFO community on Twitter that were using the same negative talking points about David Grush. And I knew they had to be getting it from someplace, and I went looking for that. And I found it on Wikipedia that it was in his bio page, and then I started looking at the edits of who was editing it, and I noticed some very familiar language in there by a specific small group of editors. It took me several months to frame out just how expansive this was. I started with David's page, and then I went to Lou's and yours and Ross Coldhart's, and it just kept going on and snowballing. It took me literally full-time for at least 2 months to wrap my head around and document all this because people wouldn't believe it.
All right, so I believe it.
Immediately.
I don't need to be convinced that this is happening, right? I mean, it's one of those things for me. It's like I kind of buy that there's a fetish for everything now, right? That's just the kind of world that we live in, that you have to get so granular now these days to be different, that of course there's a fetish for everything. So like, of course there is a group of people who heavily edit UFO, UAP, alien type Wikipedia journal entries. Like, of course that exists.
And the fun part too is that this isn't even a conspiracy. They have an online presence. They're called the Guerilla Skeptics of Wikipedia. There's been news articles written about them that have been glowing about how great of work they're doing.
Right, of course.
You can find, what's her name? Susan Gerbic has her own Wikipedia page, and you can go to her Wikipedia page about the work she's doing to monitor Wikipedia. Like, they're proud of it. This is not something that they're doing secretly.
Yes, always. Well, it's like, what's that, what are they called? Bellingcat.
Yeah.
They're kind of the same thing, where it's like, we're out here doing the undercover work that real journalists aren't doing anymore. And it's like, they're just like CIA cutout, right? It's just like all ex-CIA guys like propagandizing things happening in countries that we don't like. And it's like, oh, you just happen to be in Russia, Syria, North Korea, Pakistan, Iran. You know what I mean? You're nowhere else other than those places.
Chris, all they did was get funding by NATO. I don't know what the problem is. Right. They're an independent journalist outfit.
Yeah.
Funded by NATO.
That is heavily subsidized by military alliances and CIA carve-outs.
Chris, we both know NATO is one of the sponsors of this podcast. I don't understand the problem.
Yeah. Sorry, NATO overlords.
Well, the really fun part about this, though, is that he also got himself banned from Wikipedia, which is pretty great.
And did you then try to make edits to these pages where you saw egregious errors?
I tried to follow the rules of Wikipedia. I tried to go to the Village Pump and plead to the editors to look into this, because I found a group of editors that were controlling the narrative on several topics, not just the UFO topic, and that was not in essence of what they say is canvassing. You're not supposed to recruit another editor to back you up on a page. Well, that's what they do with impunity. So, it was a completely polarized process that when I tried to edit and go to the Village Pump, they brought in, instead of a neutral admin review, they brought in one of the members of this group, and they banned me from the platform except for editing my own talk page. Is what they did. When I tried to complain and point out something that I felt the heads of Wikipedia needed to know, because these people are libeling all these living persons systematically, and it's on their platform. And I felt like they needed to know about that and let them sort it out. But instead, I got banned for it, because afterwards I did some more digging and found out that Jane Wales actually endorses this group to be the exclusive hall monitors of Wikipedia.
I'm listening to this guy, and I'm just wondering how many people in the United States are going through a similar kind of processes, kind of a similar process as this guy is. I mean, like, you can almost see the way he's telling the story, the radicalization happening.
Mm-hmm.
A guy who's just kind of marginally interested in UFOs and UAPs sees something that he thinks is wrong, tries to say something, ends up getting banned for it. Now, there's probably some more to the story that we're missing, of course, right? But I keep on thinking about all these people attempting to work with or fix a system that refuses to hear their pleas. And how many of us are we radicalizing, or are we becoming apathetic? It sounds like this guy radicalizes. I think most people, or many people, become apathetic.
See, I'm probably on the apathetic end, because the thing I found interesting was how there's this like undercurrent of desiring justice almost, of like,
Right.
no, this is the right thing. This is Wikipedia. Yeah. It's supposed to be crowdsourced information.
Yes.
And the masses correct. I have factual information that something is incorrect on this page. I'm presenting it, I'm linking it, I'm sourcing it, and I'm getting kicked off the platform for that. That's wrong. That is wrong. But also, I come from it with the framework of, yeah, of course they don't actually care. None of these platforms care. Their regulations and their rules are just fluff. Like, none of it actually matters in the end. There's no justice. There's no court. It's what a independent corporation or nonprofit entity decides at that point in time they want to do. And right now they want to allow this to happen. Therefore, all of their rules and guidelines are irrelevant if they've just decided unilaterally, because they own the system, that they want to do this.
The rules are for us. Laws are for us. If you have the power, if you have the means, if you have the resources, you do not have to follow these things. And so, if there's a cabal of people who have the, sign of the cross from the, conglomerate of overlords who actually own Wikipedia, like, of course they get to run rampant and do whatever they want. Like, why would you expect anything else?
Yeah, and at least with government corruption, I feel like it takes a little more work, to do things, a little more coordinating between entities. Really, with this, you need one guy within Wikipedia to be like, yeah, that's fine. And then
you would really be surprised about that, Paul. One guy can really get access to millions of dollars if he has, like, say, a university attached to him.
Yeah, I guess depending on who the guy is.
You know what I mean?
Through.
Yeah. So,
well, let's find a little bit more about these pages that they're editing.
I think it's more than 100, right, that they admit to in this group, so that if they are looking for a consensus, they've got the numbers to outvote anybody on any topic, I would think.
Yeah, they hit me with canvassing also, because I reached out to one other editor that was a pro David Grush editor. So I just tried to ask him a question, and then they told me one more time, and they would ban me from even editing my own talk page. So they canvass all the time, because they have a group of at least 150 acknowledged Guerilla skeptics, but there's some unacknowledged ones. So you're talking, they admit to about 1,500 pages with over 150 million page views as of January 2024, but their project Skepticism holds over 5,500 pages. So that's how many they monitor persistently.
These people seem to have a lot of free time. I think George Knapp is right. Like, That's a lot of stuff to monitor.
It's a lot of stuff to monitor. But if they have 150, 200, 300 people monitoring to it on a regular basis, you can notify yourself of when pages are getting changed. So it's probably not all that much work, because I imagine some of those pages aren't getting edited all that much. Now, like David Grush's, right when David Grush congressional testimony, or he first did his news, what was it, News Nation, News One, what was something, I don't remember, News Nation, when he did his first interview, I'm sure that page was getting hundreds of thousands of page views, and probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people attempting to edit it. But that's a rare case, I imagine, most of the time.
Yeah, and even nowadays, I mean, how many people on a random, Monday afternoon are going to edit David Grush's page? My guess is relatively few.
Yeah. I edited our high school Wikipedia because a buddy of ours was on the Wikipedia page, and I thought that was BS, and I was pretty sure that he put himself there as one of the noted graduates, and so I deleted it.
I've actually had an issue though with getting things on Wikipedia, because the few changes I've attempted to make have been deleted. And they were purely factual. I had a friend whose dad had a Wikipedia page, and all of her siblings were mentioned, but she wasn't. So the four other siblings were mentioned and not her, and she was really mad about it. So like, as like a funny thing, I like went on like while we were at a bar and changed it, and then someone deleted it like an hour later. I don't know why.
Wow.
Yeah. So
she doesn't exist.
Apparently not. I was like, "Are you sure you're his kid? Because Wikipedia's telling me you're not."
That's
You've
probably
got other
one
kids,
of the.
not you.
That's probably one of the 5,500 web pages the Guerilla Skeptics control.
It might have been. He wasn't even like a famous person either. I don't like. It was very weird that it was changed so quickly. I don't know what was going on. Well, the really fun part too is that people have tried to change their own pages to correct factual information about their own personal background, and they have not been able to, which is kind of awesome.
Right. Oh, I'm sure it happens all the time. All the time.
Lou Elizondo, who's put his life on the line for his country, who's been in combat, who's worked at the Pentagon, comes forward with information about UFOs in 2017, and now he's subjected to this by these skeptics who are anonymous largely, and he can't even correct his own birthplace on his own page. Is that right?
Absolutely correct.
I saw some of that chit-chat. It's so petty and juvenile to, isn't it funny that Lou would want to correct his own birthplace on his page? Ha, ha, ha. We're not going to let him.
They dehumanize these people, that they don't see any longer as humans, and then they have no remorse for torturing them, because they believe that anything, they rank the belief in Santa Claus and the belief in God or deity on the same level. They're both credulous believers, and people that espouse either one aren't responsible enough to decide for themselves from factual data what their reality consists of. So these people have taken it upon themselves. It's probably a 0.001 of the human population. They know better than the vast majority of what's settled science, whether there's life after death, if there's deities, which ones. If so, they're an equal opportunity denier of nihilism.
All right. Okay. I got it. I got this part. I want to know, what are they covering up?
Yeah. Apart from where Lou Elizondo was born, Chris?
Yeah, other than that, like, yes, I almost guarantee you these are petty people.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you they are probably, cringe Reddit internet atheists. Like, all of this is tracking. All of this is totally tracking. These are neckbeards, actuallys.
Well, my favorite too is that it's his Wikipedia article says that he was like born in Florida. He was actually born in Texas. So he actually sent them his birth certificate or like his passport to try and get them to correct it, and they wouldn't accept it.
They still wouldn't accept it.
They wouldn't let the change happen.
Dude,
Which is awesome.
That's so silly.
That's dumb.
so silly. It's so dumb.
It's like clearly like And I can see that too, especially if you're from Texas, you want to say that you're from Texas
Right, of
on your
course.
article because you're
Yeah.
from Texas. Is what they do. So I thought that was funny. So let's get to some of the examples of what kind of stuff they're putting up, because it is a
Yes.
subtle sort of information manipulation that they're doing. It's not incredibly overt per se.
No.
Tim Gallaudet, an admiral. I know that he's has recently become involved in the UFO mystery in a very public way. But this guy also served his country admirably as an admiral, and then in a scientific capacities as well. What have they done to him?
They tagged his page as being sensationalism, fluff, and that it was padded. They found out that his son had tried, he was not paid, but he went in to correct his father. He added to his father's page his accolades and such, and they determined in December that there was too much fluff and stuff there, so they scheduled it for decommissioning and taking it down to the most neutral or negative that they could. And systematically, they've been chipping away at it ever since. And each time I have brought up something on UFO Twitter and such, naming specific people, like with the Salt Foundation, they are going then at all those biographies of living people that are on Wikipedia, and they're disparaging them. So they're proving the point that they can act with impunity, and it doesn't matter what we say or what we do, we can't stop them. And that is the position that they're taking. So inadvertently, I've caused it for them to go harder on all of you, and that is very upsetting for me.
So they're like deleting aspects of people's Wikipedia entries.
They'll delete positive aspects of entries and put
Okay.
more of a focus on negative aspects of their history.
Right.
So, and what they also do, and this isn't really talked about on here, but they will cite authorities, right, on particular topics, and they will cite people who say that it's bullshit and that like you shouldn't look into any of this UFO stuff. And then they'll cite like Michio Kaku and say Michio Kaku said it was like interesting for X, Y, and Z reason. And then they will have a follow-up citation of another expert saying Michio Kaku is destroying his own reputation by saying that this is even worth looking into. So they will throw in like a little flash of someone who agrees with it, but then have rebuttals right afterwards. So it's sandwiched
immediately after.
So the whole thing is set up to make these people look as bad as possible.
Right.
Like,
well, it's like when David Grush, they did what was it, that he had like a drinking problem and went to see a psychiatrist or something like that, and I think had like a domestic dispute or something, but was still with his wife that the domestic dispute was with. You know what I mean? It was just like total character assassination.
Yeah, and specifically with Grush, what had happened was he had PTSD and had an incident with the police over him like drinking too much, and he got treated for his PTSD because he served in the military and he's doing a lot better now. And that's one of the things on his page is they're like, oh, he had these like mental health issues and was institutionalized, and it was like, well, he had PTSD and he had to go see doctors about it. So but when you see it, it makes it sound insane. So like the way that they frame it, it's not that it's inaccurate, it's that they're putting together information that's going to make him look as bad as possible.
Classic, dude. I mean, but this is classic media stuff. They've been doing this since the advent of print journalism.
Mm-hmm.
Controlling the language is very important.
Well, and I think back in the day, people knew not to fully trust the newspapers. And I think we forgot that maybe somewhere around the 60s. We got too American, we were fighting the commies and we just started believing everything. And then I think with the advent of the internet, everyone just has this like brain break where they're like, wait, all these people are full of it and corporations are doing bad things and trying to control what we're intaking. It's like, yeah, of course they are. That's what they do.
That's what I'm saying, dude. We have all become radicalized. And there are still plenty of like drones for empire or drones for the system, right? But there's a lot of us who are like, man, these, whatever it was, right? For this guy, it was the UFO UAP world, right? But it could have been like a farmer, or it could have been somebody who worked at a Detroit factory that got shut down and moved in the late 90s after NAFTA. You know what I mean? There's all these different things that have happened to America for us to realize they're lying to us. They've always been lying to us. And we're in the rat race, baby. Like, the only way for you to truly succeed is to step on everybody. And a lot of us don't want to do that.
And that's the thing too, is that, so many politicians, especially on the left, talk about the mistrust of institutions and how we have, an institutional trust issue in the population. It's like, yeah, but they like seem to blame it on the people.
Right.
And
Always.
not the fact that the institutions keep doing sketchy shit.
Yeah.
Like I was
Right.
watching that new Netflix documentary about the octopus, and the whole time I was sitting there thinking, I was like, yeah, this is why no one trusts the government, is because you do things like this.
Right.
Because you do terrifying, covert,
Yes.
conspiratorial shit. And then you hear some other wacky thing that may not be true, but you're like, well, I don't know. They did this other stuff. Like, I don't know. We were running drugs and weapons to the Contras. Like, maybe they did that other thing too. And
they don't even do good stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Like, when was the last time you're like, wow, what a great government project?
World War II,
Right.
the Civilian Conservation Corps, that was pretty cool.
Right.
The 30s.
I mean, you could maybe argue for the 60s and the Great Society. Maybe going to the moon. That was pretty awesome.
That was
But
cool.
we can't even do that anymore.
That was pretty cool. I wish we would go to Mars. That's on my list. Here's the thing, dude. That's one of the best things that Trump did, was he put a gigantic focus on getting men to Mars. I fully support that. I think we need more of a focus on getting men to Mars. We need that. Great
People
space
to Mars,
politics.
Paul, not men. People.
Huh?
It's very Trumpian of you.
Oh, getting people to Mars. You're right. Great
My
space
Lord.
politics. All I'm saying.
And you're the lib. You're the lib.
Allegedly. They left me, Chris. The libs left me.
I didn't leave the liberals. The liberals left me. Very
Oh,
RFK.
yes. Well, I was thinking more Matt Taibbi, but sure.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's hear what they did to Jeremy Corbell. Jeremy Corbell, the journalist, if you will, that has a documentary about Bob Lazar. He works with George Knapp on a podcast. They're pretty tight, those two. Also good friends with David Grush, the UFO whistleblower.
Blowers who have or are considering coming forward. Have you looked at Jeremy's page?
Yeah, I have. They've done to him what they do everyone else that they are set to target. They dial down any positive attributes, say like of how put off and such, any genuine progress that they've made in the journalism field or sciences and things like that. They will take it. They will edit out any of what gives them legitimacy and start pushing the questionable titles of pseudoscience, fringe, sensationalism up toward the top of the page, because they rely on people to mostly just read the first two sentences of any Wikipedia page. So they try to get everything jammed into there possible. So you'll find on all these people that they contest, like Jeremy Corbell, that they'll have the pejoratives at the top of the page in the first two sentences of labeling pseudoscientists and fringe or purveyors of such. And they've done that to Jeremy Corbell. And you and Ross, and the list goes on.
And it's also with UFO cases, videos, the 3 Pentagon videos, for example, which our government says are unidentified. They're still the people who have the most information, the most data, stuff that has not been made public. They say they are genuine unknowns. Not to the Guerilla Skeptics, though. They start with, well, it could be drones, it could be flare, it could be birds, and all the same stuff that has been brought up before. Later on, I think, from reading your stuff, Rob, later on, 12 graphs down, they'll say, yeah, the Pentagon still says they're unidentified, but they've already obscured it so much and buried it in crap that really any reader is going to have a hard time seeing it.
Paul, there was a man who thought that there were little creatures who lived on our hands and got people sick, and you needed to wash your hands to get rid of these creatures that lived on on our hands all the time. And they thought he was a madman, and they sent him to an insane asylum, Paul.
Well, that's been the podcast, everyone. No, but honestly, that's a fair point, Chris. That's a fair point. And that's why there has to be room for discussion of topics, right?
That's right. That's right.
And I feel like we're
the
not.
arena of debate.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things that I think is interesting where people really don't want folks to look into things that they don't like. You know what I mean? And
Right.
especially what it especially bothers me with something that feels as innocuous as UFOs, because that's me saying there's something in the sky. I don't really know what it is. What is it? And
Right.
the government sees them and they say, I don't know what it is. What is it? And we think maybe they're doing some research into that. We want to know what that is. I don't really see what the social harm is with that belief structure. Like, what bad is me being curious about UFOs doing where it needs to be monitored?
It's questioning the narrative, because no matter what, it means the system is lying to us. And these people cannot accept that the system is lying to us. And this is just a beautiful example that is very easy in their minds for them to attach that, oh, UFOs with little green men inside of them. That's stupid. That's silly. That's a infantile belief. And I can make fun of these people, and I'm doing it for good. I'm making these people look bad, and I'm doing it for good. And I'm helping the system control these dangerous elements. And I think that's essentially the psychological process that's happening here.
Yeah. It bothers me so much with a topic that I don't consider to be heavily politicized, right? That to me it is not something that is going to impact day-to-day life.
Oh, I disagree wholeheartedly. I think it's incredibly politicized.
Well,
it's not culture ward.
I think that's a better way of saying it. It's not a culture
It's
war
not
topic.
culture ward. It's actually a uniting belief in that the vast majority of us know that the system is lying to us.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to say, is that it's not one of these like hot button culture war topics where it's like we have to control the disinformation being put out there. It's like everyone kind of knows the government's lying because they've always lied. Like, do we think they just stopped lying? Like after Snowden, they're just like, y'all, we got to stop spying and lying to the people. Like, no, they're going to keep doing what they're doing.
There's always going to be hall monitors. There's always going to be nannies who are going to say, you can't do that. And like, we have a ton of those right now because that's kind of the like liberal way of doing things these days, is a bunch of people being like, we're doing this to help you. And you're like, well, can you maybe take your boot off of my neck because I can't breathe? We're doing this to help you.
See, that's what I mean by they left me, Chris. They left me. Yeah. They all left me.
Yeah,
I'm just out here in the cold.
And you know what's so funny about these people is that, like, and again, I'm totally stuck on the fact that they probably are these like Reddit atheists, right? Who have the I believe science posters in their front yard. And I look at these people and I'm like, you're the same thing. You're the exact same thing. You're just on the opposite side of the spectrum. Instead of like an old man who sits in a throne with a big white beard who watches us masturbate, it's like, well, science, I believe the science and everything science tells me. And the thing is, for them, science is authorities. Science is authorities. It's not the actual process of experimentation, hypothesis, and like creating fundamental laws of governing the universe. That is not what it is. That is not the science they believe in. They believe in authorities and what the authorities tell them, which I think is essentially like the new priest class, which is what we're seeing happening in our politics right now. Is that there is a politics as religion, and we've given it a religious ideation in our minds to fill the God-sized hole in all of our hearts.
Well, and I think one of the dumbest things about it too is that the left has gone so far to the appeal to authority side, and I think so much of our politics now are defined by like the differences between, right? That I'm not that. And as the right has become more anti-authority to almost a ridiculous extent in a lot of places, the left has made their defining characteristic how much they love authority, how much they love
Yes.
experts, to the point where it's actually
Yes.
gotten dumb. Like, I think that it is very important to listen to people who have studied things and know what they're talking about, which I think we've discussed on this podcast, where when you have a guy who has his PhD in accounting and he tries to do a 800 book treatise on why the Unabomber and the Tylenol killer are the same person, sometimes that's dumb as shit. It doesn't mean it always will be, but I think it's just a little
Right.
knock into this is really stupid portion of my brain. But pretending like every single person who publishes an article for some reason is like smarter than everyone else is also incredibly stupid. I don't know.
Right.
It's all just so dumb. It's hard for me to wrap my head around sometimes of like, can we not just like temper ourselves slightly and be slightly less absurd where we're all just becoming mockeries of ourselves is what it feels like.
95% of these guerrilla skeptics or whatever the hell they call themselves said, I got the Fauci ouchie. 95% of them said that phrase.
Well, Chris, that will be the episode for today.
I didn't write it.
I was about to.
Oh, okay.
I was about to
thought
say
you were
scale
ending
of 1 to
completely.
5.
Yeah, I realized that.
On a scale of 1 to 5, Reddit atheists, what do you give our episode on the Guerilla Skeptics of Wikipedia? Self-given name, by the way. They call themselves that. I just want to say.
Yeah, right. So lame. It's just so unbelievably lame. And the smell in this room when they all meet together is atrocious, I'm sure. So I'm actually going to give him, what was his name again?
Rob Heatherly.
I'm going to give Rob 1 Reddit atheist because I don't want him to have 5 Reddit atheists, 1 being the best. In fact, 0 being the best. No Reddit atheists are in him. This guy rules. This
That's
guy
fair.
freaking rules. And this is, dude, I like Knapp's stuff because Knapp gets you a foot into like the world of the weird, but gives you a tangible thing to hold on. Like these group of nerds editing UFO entries on Wikipedia. Like, boom, I'm sold. I'm sold.
Can I tell you my favorite part, actually, that I forgot to bring up? Susan Gerbic, who runs the Guerilla Skeptics of Wikipedia, guess what she was doing before this?
Working for the CIA.
She was a photographer at JCPenney.
I don't know
weird.
what to think anymore, dude. I don't know what to think anymore.
How dumb is that?
That's unbelievable. But that's escapism. You
Yeah.
know, her real life was on the internet. So you were asking, how could somebody look at that much Wikipedia pages? That's all she was doing when she was off work.
Yeah.
That's all she was doing.
Well-
Was surfing Wikipedia, like being like, I believe the science, and the science doesn't like UFOs, and so I'm going to tell everybody about that, and they're dumb.
Well, Chris, I actually like your rating scale. I'm also going to give him 0 Reddit atheists because he shouldn't have to deal with that.
Now, deal with that.
The man's an American hero. He's doing the Lord's work.
This is an ex-Marine, sir. Thank you for your service.
I also love, it seems like George found him on X. It seemed like he just saw his X post and was like, I got to talk to this guy.
I got to talk to this guy. He's out there, dude, punching these nerds in the face like a good Marine. Dude. He's like, shut up, nerd. Stupid.
That's
UFOs
so fun.
are real. I was
Guy.
with the Marines.
Imagine how fun that is, though, where this guy just like gets pissed off at Wikipedia, starts like tweeting about how annoyed he is, and then George Knapp was like, "Hey, you want to come on Coast?
You want to come on? You want to come on Coast and talk to me about the stupid wiki nerds?"
And that's why George Knapp gets the best guest, because he's doing the work, dude. Shoe leather
dude.
reporting.
Always, dude. The man is a baleen whale of Twitter refuse. And he just gets all the tasty morsels into his gut.
Well, that will be the show for today, Chris. You can support us at patreon.com/coast-to-coast-pm, and we'll be back with more next week.
All conspiracy, all the time. Later.